Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I feel like I've known this presence, this empowering force who I'm with right now, but I want to introduce you all to Miss Eboni K. Williams. And I always like the Miss. I don't know why. I was also going to say Eboni K. Williams Esquire, but uh,
I'll take that too, Andrew.
okay. She is the host and executive producer of the Warner Music Group podcast Holding Court, which I absolutely love. I'm a dedicated listener. She starred on The Real Housewives of New York. I was going to say former, but there has been no new Real Housewives of New York. So I think it's
Well, I guess you could say Real Housewives of New York alum from season 13. I think that works.
okay. I like the nuance. There you go.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
she's the host of the Grio, and she's guest hosted on The View, which she just made an amazing appearance on. She has a true crime series that I have to do more work and listen and watch. It's on the Own and Investigation Discovery networks. She's an attorney. She's a frequent public speaker on Black culture and history. She lives and she owns property in
Mhm.
Harlem. And I am here to talk all things about her new book, Bet on Black: The Good News About Being Black in America Today. Hello, Miss
Yay.
Ebony.
Hello, Andrew. That was a fit. Like I need to take you on the road with me. What an intro. Great.
I'll be your, warm up act. There you go.
Exactly. I love it. I love it.
Well, my first question, you've been on an amazing press journey from The View to Watch What Happens Live
Mhm.
to The Breakfast Club multiple
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
to touring, I think, to the South to see some of your sorority sisters. Um, how are you feeling? How are you checking in right now?
Yeah, it's off to a rabid start. Yeah, this has been a fantastic effort by a great team. I just have to give some respect and some gratitude to my fantastic team at Legacy Lit, which is a fantastic imprint in the Hachette publishing family. My publisher, Krishan Trotman, Tara Kennedy, he's running PR on this thing. They've been outstanding. And what was important to me, Andrew, around the press for this particular book, especially as we launch in Black History Month, was to give us just as much variety as possible. So that's why you see in the very same day, 3 hours with Charlemagne and Envy on the Breakfast Club, get in a car and chatting it up with Whoopi and Joy at the table at the View. So I really wanted that range. I really wanted the variety of opportunities to talk about this book. Very spicy episode of Watch What Happens Live, which of course, really centered rightfully the Potomac finale, but there was still opportunity to talk about my new Judge show and the book. So it's been great.
So I feel that this really will launch us right into. I mean, I've been riveted. I listened to Ebony read
Mm.
Bet on Black, which is so powerful. Um, there's a presence in your voice about you say choose your own damn divine self, or
Yeah,
it might be choose your own damn self, but I added the divine.
I
Uh,
like that.
and you're writing for a Black audience, but I also feel that there's an allyship built in there. And I think with your media appearances, say from The View to
Yeah.
Watch What Happens Live to The Breakfast Club, they're also very different hosts and they're different
Mhm.
races, different um
Genders,
genders. Exactly.
gender
So
identities, sexual
yeah,
orientations, everything. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I think it's even more than allyship, Andrew. I am writing this book for a Black audience. That's very apparent in the writing. And also, the anecdotes in the book speak to that fantastic, beautiful 6'2", blonde, blue-eyed, queer flight attendant that I engaged with on my flight. It, and he broke down into tears telling me how my presence on Real Housewives of New York, unapologetically centering Blackness, gave him permission as a white man who is queer to come out to his family. Right.
Wow.
So I think it's more than just allyship to Blackness. I think it's an invitation to any and all people that find themselves feeling subordinate or marginalized or other than or asked to kind of eat it or center something else, something that's not them, whether it's heterosexuality, whether it's Jewish identity, Muslim identity, Christian, whatever, women constantly feeling the need to be accommodating the male gaze. I really am writing to all of that in the context of my choice as a Black woman in America to center Blackness. By me choosing to center my identities, I am inviting those beyond that audience to center theirs.
No, thank you for that, Ebony, because I'm a gay white man. Ebony knows I have like a complicated Jewish ancestry, but all of that
It's
aside,
all very fabulous. Yeah.
well, I would have really wanted to be at your Shabbat dinner, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get into RHONY later for
Yeah.
everyone.
Okay.
Because I, feel that what you're saying, people even reached out to me. There was a man named Michael where you did a cameo for him, and he also expressed the same feeling that he felt seen to be openly gay. And this is just a testament to your authenticity. So I want to thank you for laying all your cards on the table.
Thank
And
you, Mayor. I
well,
think that's what we owe the audience. I really do. And that's why I get annoyed and pissed when I see people on these platforms of reality TV, to me, just caricature and spectacle. And I get it. It's like whatever, silliness and fun. But like, shit, like this is a platform that can change lives. And I guess I take that very literally and very seriously.
yeah, well, like I've said to you before, Ebony, you are not new to the media landscape.
No.
You've had how many years of a career in starting with your radio days?
Right. So just about I'm on year 11 or 12 and in the broadcast space, and that's after 7 years of practicing law. So, I've been, I started early, I will say. I went to college at 16 and it's kind of been off to the races ever since. So
Yeah, well, as someone who's about to defend his dissertation in the summer,
Woo!
well, thank you. Now I have to do it, Ebony, because you're here.
You
You're holding
do.
me accountable.
Auntie E's gonna push you, Andrew. You better get that doctorate. Yeah.
Yeah, push me. Okay, but that importance of education is something that comes up right even in your intro, is
Yep.
this aspect of how education for you was a way to really claim your space and your agency. And I'd love for you to explain really what you mean by that.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it was such a point of liberation. I reference the ancestors and their modeling of what that looks like, going all the way to Frederick Douglass, who just so geniusly, right? Just such a smart, savvy man, born into chattel slavery in America in the uh, early 1800s, who uh, ends up learning how to read in an era where it is literally against the law, legally forbidden, punishable by death in some places for Black enslaved people to read. And Douglass learns to read by tricking his white playmate, who happens to be the son of his slave master, by saying like, oh, I bet you can't spell cat. And then the little white boy's like, oh, it's CAT. And Douglass goes, noted. Now I know how to spell cat. It's just so ingenious. And that becomes Douglass's pathway to becoming what would be one of the greatest American orators and speakers and patriots and really politicians of our time. And it all just comes through virtue of education. So for me, education is not about the degree. It's not about the paper on the wall. It's not about thinking you're better than somebody else. It's about tethering it to my freedom, Andrew, is tethered to my education. You can't gaslight me about being Black. You can't gaslight me about being a woman. You can't confuse me around my individual innate value as to who I am in this world, because I'm informed both academically and through lived experience. So I know who I am. When I say I know who I am, baby, I know who I am.
Amen. Uh, but also, and he's the most photographed. Ebony, I know you've brought that.
Yes.
Frederick Douglass is the most photographed in the 19th century. And I
Of
mean,
any
that kind
race.
of
Of
any
any
race.
race. And that's so, people want to know why RHONY, right? Or why reality TV. It's the power of optics.
Mm.
There's only so many people you can reach staying in a news space or staying in a talk radio space or staying in all the places that people want to limit my visibility and my presence. But Douglas, as I refer to him, he's my greatest and first teacher of the power of optics. There's a reason Douglas made sure that he was photographed more even than Abe Lincoln. Okay, because he wanted his nation, his fellow countrymen, to see this beautiful, distinguished. He never smiled because it wasn't shit funny at that time for him. You know, this beautiful human being that his nation had the audacity to enslave. And it was so powerful.
Yeah. Well, I publish in 19th century literature. So,
Oh,
you know,
amazing.
I'm a Harriet Jacobs. Her narrative is
Come on
fascinating.
now.
Uh,
Yes.
I work a lot on queering Whitman and Oscar Wilde. So, you know, this is
Familiar.
speaking to, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
familiar
you're
in this
familiar.
territory.
Yeah.
But something that comes through is you have such an interdisciplinary, is our buzzword, but way with your education where I find it fascinating that you went into Black studies, which itself, right? You're learning history, culture, literature.
Sure.
So it's all different departments of study. But
Mhm.
then you go into law school, and I'm wondering, how did that transition happen in your mind?
So I knew going into my undergraduate studies, Andrew, at Chapel Hill at the tender age of 16, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I speak about it in the book that I'm Black, how for me being a lawyer was, yes, voice for the voiceless, advocating all those good kind of heartfelt reasons that you'd want to be a lawyer, but it was also always pragmatic for me. It was always knowing that as a little Black girl born to a single mother with no formal education of her own in the deep American South, remember, I might have grown up in North Carolina. I was born in Louisiana. Okay. I was born to a mother who is only 62 now and went to segregated schools until she was in high school. So, just understand. And my name is Eboni Kiana Williams. Like, that is a Black ass name. Okay. So, knowing the kind of projections that my nation would have for me and the expectations of mediocrity and even subordination that I was introduced to this world in, I knew I had to be very particular with the route of education and really professional pursuit I would travel into. So it was, for me, it was being a lawyer. That's one of those things, to this day, you can't take away my law degree. You can't take away my license to practice law, although there was that page 6, attempt, which we'll get to try to discredit me. Honey, you can never discredit a credible woman. And that's what I am. And so that's really what the law pursuit was about for me, too. It was saying, before I open my mouth, I am Eboni K. Williams, Esquire, credentialed. The state of North Carolina says as much. And now what else is going on, as Cynthia Bailey would say?
I love it.
Mhm.
So your mother, you just brought her up. I
Mhm.
feel that we have to talk about Gloria. We have to talk about your Aunt Katie. They
Yeah.
are right in the beginning of Bet on Black,
Yes.
that you detail a childhood that I think many are going to, like you said, representation matters, the optics matter. They've seen you now on a larger platform. Um, wouldn't know about where Eboni K. Williams begins her journey. And I feel that that sisterhood or community building, I should say,
Yes. Yes.
with your aunt, with your mother is so foundational. So, why is it so important for you to reflect back to
Yeah.
what they instilled in you?
Well, I think it's really easy, especially for those of us that are privileged and blessed to have these big platforms, Housewives or, The View or whatever it is, right? Charlemagne, you see us now and you see something that looks relatively successful, maybe wealthy, big, important, not particularly accessible. And my work can't be effective, Andrew, if I'm not wholly accessible to the people that I want to connect with, because that's the work of my life, right? So I have to go back. I've got to start from the place of this vulnerable, scared, quite frankly, um, little girl who is really wanting to please her mother, wanting to achieve her way into love and acceptance and approval, starting within my own home and then for the world to see, hence the pageants, hence the academically gifted classes, hence the, fudging my report card to turn the B into the A because I don't want to deal with Gloria's wrath because it's coming, and all of that. I've got to tell those stories. I got to talk about what it's like to be bussed across town in Charlotte, North Carolina, going from our publicly subsidized housing, which was fine, but certainly some level of poverty there, to the other side of town where I went to this amazing elementary school where, the houses are starting at $2.5 million back in the 80s. So, so there was something around the optics of seeing how people live, seeing what's possible in the wealthiest country in the world, in, this is the land of opportunity. I believe that. I have a whole chapter in Bet on Black about being a Black patriot and embracing Americana as our land as well. And I've got to start at the beginning of that story with the Gloria and my grandma Katie, and contrast their experiences as Black women, grandma born in 34, mom born in 60, me born in 83. There's a reason I call this book, Andrew, Good News About Being Black Today. It is absolutely better to be Black in America today than it was yesterday. And it'll be even better tomorrow. And I believe that. And that's the good news story that I am talking about in this book.
Yeah. Well, and was Gloria and Katie, they were both born in the South?
They were both born in Southeast Louisiana. Yeah. So my grandma Katie was born in 34 to sharecroppers. Her father was a sharecropper. Her mother was a stay-at-home mother, and her father also was a preacher. My mother was born in 60 in that same small town, Amite, Louisiana. It's about an hour outside of Baton Rouge, which is the capital of Louisiana. And my grandfather had a fourth grade education, but, was a hustler. He was a barber. He worked in a feed mill. I talk about that in the book. And so then my mother, just becomes this brilliant entrepreneur, doesn't have the resources to finish her formal education in college. She starts, but leaves to raise me and provide a different life for herself. And she really taught me and ingrained in me ownership, entrepreneurship. She says, Ebony, no one's going to pay you what you're going to pay you, which is why when I went to launch Holden Court, I was no longer going to be talent for hire. I'm done with that part of my career. I'm totally done with it. If I don't executive produce it, if I don't have ownership rights in the intellectual property, you can actually miss me with it.
Yeah, well, and you actually say you talk a lot about that experience of starting Holding Court. And
Yes.
I listened to your most recent episode, and as this premieres, our interview, I think it's your most recent episode. It was where you
Yeah.
discuss about uh
Do
Ron
I talk about
DeSantis.
the podcast clause?
Yes, you talk about the
Yes.
podcast clause
Yeah.
with
I
Robin
ended up
Dixon.
texting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
texted Andy that after the episode. And yeah, so.
Very, no, very wise words about, oh, I love it. You say, because this is now going to be my mantra, Ebony. Thank you for this. I'm writing it down everywhere. You say, if it's not prohibited, then it's permitted. And
That's
I'm
it.
thinking, well, yes, if the rules and the policies and regulations aren't there, then it's permitted.
It's permitted. It's permissible. Permissible until prohibited. That's it. And I get, Andy's frustration. We had a very frank conversation afterwards because I think he was surprised. Like some people were surprised by my answer on Watch What Happens Live. Because I think that the expectation or the narrative goes, well, if you're on a reality show, you say everything on the show. Well, show me that in the fine print. We close every episode of Holden Court, Andrew, as you know, with Dustin Ross saying, read your terms and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So if my talent deal, and this goes for Bravo, this goes for Carlos King's shows, this goes for The View, this goes for all of these entities that hire folks as talent, if you have not narrowly construed where their supplemental content can go or not go, that's on you. You've got to update your, you better call business affairs.
Well, and this entrepreneurial spirit that your family they taught you, you saw, the barber shop business happening with your family, that your podcast was so liberatory, um, rarely resonates with me because that's how, even though I'm in a university, I really didn't feel seen with my openly gay work and taking certain chances where now I get to talk to, guests like you, Ebony,
Yeah.
and really bring that scholarly analysis to different arenas. But again, I got nervous. I think it's an instinctual feeling of, oh, I'm so out there now. I'm doing something against the grain. How am I
Mhm.
going to be perceived? Is there going to be backlash? Is someone going to try to stop me? Like, how do
Yeah.
you um combat that energy or listen to that voice, but then proceed on?
The answer to everything you just asked is yes. Yes, people are going to try to stop you. Yes, people are going to critique it. Yes, people are going to feel a way about it and express that in the comments section. And Auntie E says, do it anyway. Do it anyway. I'll tell you this. This is an exclusive. It's not in the book. But I think it's, again, so important to be really transparent. Today, Holding Court is an NAACP Image Award nominated show for Best News and Information Podcast. I'm nominated alongside Trevor Noah. Dustin and I are flying out to LA. We're going to kill that red carpet like we always do. This is all great. The show, Warner Music acquired the distribution rights. I retain the ownership rights of the property, but they are now my distributing partner. This is coming off of a successful first year run with iHeart and Charlemagne. The point is, the podcast is a bona fide hit. Well, you know what? When I wanted to first incubate Holding Court, Andrew, and you should know this, especially because of what you do. It started with a one sheet, like all good ideas, and I shopped it and I shopped it, and Spotify had some interest. We piloted the show, and ultimately Spotify passed on Holding Court. And I was told that nobody, especially not a Black audience, would ever listen to a legal podcast. Oh, yeah. I was told I
Wow.
was great. I was told I was talented for sure. I was even told that the episodes we presented to Spotify were great content. And yet there was no belief. There was no willing to bet on Black.
Mhm.
There was no willingness to even see what that kind of show could do in the landscape. And I had a choice, right? So Spotify, which is like the big pooba, especially at that time. You have to remember, this was like when they had acquired the Obama podcast. They had acquired Meghan Markle and Harry. Like there was nothing bigger in podcasting at that time than Spotify exclusives, right?
Yeah.
And so when Spotify basically says thanks, but no thanks, I could have packed up my belongings and went home and said, well, they say it's not a show. So nah. I said, can you curse on this show?
Oh yeah, you can curse. Yeah.
Oh, I said, fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck the Spotify no. Respectfully, they distribute the show now. Thanks, Spotify. But they were not going to in any way undermine what I knew in my spirit, Andrew, was not only a good show, but a show that my people and the people need. Of all the things I've done, Housewives, the news, The View, I love it all, like true crime, nothing gives me more joy than to talk to people like you that on a weekly basis get laughs, get info, and get seen and felt and heard through the work that we do, Dustin Ross and myself do on Holding Court every week. It is the crown jewel of my media empire. And now it shares space with this book, Bet on Black, because those are the two things I am most proud to have contributed to this world.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you told Spotify, fuck it. I'm gonna continue and I'm gonna find my path because it's a creative intuition, right? It's a gut
Yes.
feeling. And like I've started listening more to that voice within me of, oh, okay, it's not happening right now, but keep listening to that passion. But it's tough when the doors are
It's tough.
closing.
It's tough, especially when the higher you ascend, the louder the no is, right? So I wrote about this in my first book, Pretty Powerful: Appearance, Substance, and Success. I say I don't care about a million no's. I only need one yes. And that's true of anything. I had a girlfriend who was, laid off in the Facebook Meta slaughter recently, which so many, let go 11,000 people. TikTok's doing the same. All these, people are laid. Amazon, everybody's getting laid off and fired left and right. It's horrible. Keep your head up, hang around the hoop. Who gives a shit about them saying no? And who cares about the 30 other interviews you're going to go on this month that say no? You need one yes. One yes can change your life. I have seen it.
Yep. And then you talk a lot about a Black network. And I think I definitely need to, you've just landed us right there, which is when that door does open, you get that yes. Then you start to build this community spirit. And I mean, you even mentioned Charlemagne the God. You've mentioned, um, how there's a dynamic network now behind you of a community. Um,
Absolutely.
right. So is that, I'm sure you look and you reflect on, wow, I have that you're also doing that for others. Like you're
Have
offering
to.
advice and you have mentees that you're now training.
Absolutely have to, because none of us, and this is universal, none of us get to where we are in isolation. That's just a myth, that's a lie. And for those that try to go it alone, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. I'm trying to, my mother gets so frustrated with me. I'm going to tell you, Miss Gloria is so pissed that I am not already at the Oprah level of billionaire status and world dominance, because her baby's so smart and her baby's so pretty. Her baby works so hard. Mother, I'm not trying to go fast. I'm trying to go far. And it's okay. A lot of people, every time they see me on The View, it's like, oh my God, you killed it. Like, how are you not there? Baby, in its time. Everything in its time. I don't want to rush shit. Housewives, God, I love the Housewives audience, and even those that don't love me back, that's cool too. But lots of people, especially coming off the heels of this Watch What Happens Live, are like, "Oh my God! Like, I wish we had seen more of you. You're actually amazing energy." And anybody that could throw shade at Nene Leakes and Ron DeSantis in the same day needs to be a housewife, right? And I love that, and I receive that humbly. So then the attitude is like, well, why? We want you on the reboot. We want you on the reboot in its time.
Mhm.
Promise you, Auntie E is never not working. I am always building content, creating spaces to represent what I represent in this world. And that is not going to stop just because RHONY OG went away, or RHONY Legacy may or may not come back, or I may or may not be on this first season of the reboot. Baby, it's all coming in its time.
Yeah. Well, and even talking with you right now, I feel it happened when it had to happen with
Yes.
Bet on Black, with your experiences, with my experiences, that, you need that perspective. And like the questions I'm asking you now wouldn't have been the questions if you had said, "Oh yeah, let me talk about what just happened after uh RHONY collapsed in some kind of
Well, you remember,
purgatory."
we've been communicating, and I kept saying there's going to be a time where we're going to talk and it's going to mean something. And that's why we're talking now, and not, like you said, not in the space of tabloid fodder. Like, child, anybody got time for that?
Mhm.
That, again, I'm not even making money off that. I want to put some money in your pocket. You've, in 30 minutes of this interview, you've learned things about the Spotify pass. You've, things that people don't even know, and that's going to give this conversation in this moment everlasting currency. Now it has a different value.
Yep. Well, and this is what is coming through with everyone listening or watching. Our members get to watch the video. Plug there. But you always break, I know break the fourth wall is such a media term
Mhm.
in, I mean, usually fictional, but reality TV now has it. But I think it's our everyday lives. Not everyone always breaks away from this perfection model or how they're communicating, but you are always game and always ready to, whether it's even about, the Black community intersection with other marginalized groups, that you go there. Like, because I just listened to Hoden Court. I loved what you said about, well, what's happening with the college, what is the Black history
Ron DeSantis, the AP classes of Black
AP
Studies,
classes of Black studies, and that
placing them. Yeah.
you even got some pushback about just trying to maybe target, oh, it's because of queer theory. And I mean, I study queer theory, and it's like, in a way, not the same as critical race theory. I would never say that. Kimberly Crenshaw, intersectionality, she
Oh, it's its
also
own discipline. We got
has
it.
its own discipline from law school, I think from Harvard. But in a way, queer theory, I would say, operates in the same, where it is so nuanced. There's so much tentacles to it that how people even think of queer. I mean,
Yes.
I get pushback too when I say I do queer work. But, I listen to that, but I also then recognize that doing queer work is representing such a large umbrella of the community. And I just want to thank you that you've really shown the way that marginalized groups, there's an intersection between activism and representation. That, was that something you had always thought about, those intersected aspects, or is that something you started to do more research and work to look into those
No
communities?
one's ever asked me about this, and I'm appreciative for the opportunity to talk about it. Let me tell you my first teacher of the cautionary tale of what can happen when intersectionality goes wrong. What happens when people don't do the work of actively intersecting humanitarian interest. My first teacher in this was, to me, the epic failure of feminism as a totality movement. Particularly, it starts in the 1920s, and it really, to me, comes to a head in the 1970s, where you see feminism as a movement, which was primarily very white, very, very white, from Susan B. Anthony all the way up to Gloria Steinem. And there was always Black women at the table. There were even Black men at the table of feminism. Frederick Douglass is a feminist, let's be very clear. He literally would speak at women. So anyways, Blackness has always been very palpable in the space of feminism. And yet we were always aggressively pushed out. I'll give you an example. I'm a very proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. There's also the Black wonderful sorority of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. Well, both of those sororities, Andrew, back in 1913, one of the original women's suffrage marches in America, marching for the women's right to vote in America, there was this huge thing, huge parade. That's where the suffragette white comes from and all of that. Well, AKA in Delta, we're told, basically, we don't want you Black bitches here. Mm-mm. No, this is for, we're fighting for women and we're fighting for our rights, and y'all's Black asses are just going to slow down our process, So we need to get in the door first, and then maybe we'll help you once we get there, was essentially the conversation. That was negotiated, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, they let the Black sororities be in the very, very back. Disgusting. Doesn't get much better by the 1960s and 70s, when the Shirley Chisholm ran as the first woman of any color to run on a major ticket nomination platform when she ran for the Democratic ticket of the United States presidency in 1972. Gloria Steinem and them and all the Ms. and all this, girl, we got you. But when it came time to cast those delegates, they were nowhere to be seen. They said, surely it's not the time. We fear the impact on broader feminism, which centers whiteness and if white women can't get there first, I'm sorry, sis, we don't have the capacity, space, nor time to assist with helping bring Black women along with us. Black women and your movement will slow us down. So that, to me, is the cautionary tale, Andrew, of what happens when we don't lean into the obvious moral obligation. For me, this is a moral obligation. Make no mistake about it. This is not politics. That's why I get so pissed when people make my RHONY season about politics. It was never about politics. This is about humanitarianism, and it's about a moral obligation to do better by one another as Americans and as humans. So my lesson there is we have to do two things at the same time. That's why I had to address on Holding Court, as you mentioned, I will not participate in an effort to further oppress queer people, including queer Black people, by subscribing to an asinine argument that says, oh, we want to embrace Black studies, but We're only eradicating this coursework of Black AP because it has queer theory in it. Get the fuck out of here. I don't want to hear you trying to teach me about Black studies and you're not centering James Baldwin. You're not centering Barbara Jordan. If you're not centering Langston Hughes, if you're not talking about and highlighting the incredible work of the civil rights icon, no, not Dr. King, I'm talking about Bayard Rustin, then I don't want it. I will reject it whole heart. And if more people had that attitude of a full rejection, if it's not fully inclusive, then we should reject it. And we should stand our ground, and we should negotiate more firmly, and we have to demand the conceding of power if we really want it.
Yes. Well, you've just led into the RHONY of it all without you even knowing, because this is actually where Eboni, I first reached out to her because your season was premiering. I forget, the ending of the season premiered, was it summer 2021?
It was summer 20, yeah, because we premiered in May of 21. We shot September through February of 21. And then we premiered in May of 21 and we wrapped like July.
Okay. So I was teaching in fall 21. Shout out to that class. It was a questioning democracy and Walt Whitman. And it was about Whitman's own racist statements, and not that he could be really queerly radical, but that doesn't mean he also couldn't have racist views. That
Totally.
these are not exclusive.
At all.
So I was teaching Nella Larson's Passing.
Oh, yes. Great.
For the Harlem Renaissance.
Yep.
I was
Fantastic.
teaching James Baldwin's Another Country, and The Great Gatsby, all to look at these nuanced identities and the absence of Blackness in The Great Gatsby, or, you know, that's as important to investigate. So I actually used your Harlem dinner, your Harlem night episode, as a way to look about passing, especially about your own identity and what did it mean when you centered Blackness with the Harlem figures, and how the cast responded. And, you know, we don't have to go over and regurgitate everything.
Yeah.
Because it's in your book. It's in Bet on Black.
It is in the book. It is in the book.
I do want to, there was a lot of defensiveness, I'll put it that way, when all you're doing is just teaching history, teaching literary history. And something I've always wanted to know, Eboni, is you don't have to mention any cast member, but once the cameras went down, because this is where I go with reality TV, like cameras are up, I'm sure energy's moving and you're really just going from one thing to the other, and it becomes a blur maybe with the process. But when the cameras went down, did any cast member actually have a really heart-to-heart nuanced conversation with you? Like, wow, I didn't know about Langston Hughes like this, or I'm so glad, Eboni, you shared this platform and history with us.
So what's interesting about that is after cameras went down, I got text messages that same night from Ramona, although she left early, or maybe Ramona texted me the next morning, but just saying that she had a lovely time. And she really appreciated, she actually said, I specifically appreciated being gifted. I think she got the Duke Ellington candle as the tastemaker of the group, because I intentionally assigned each cast member a specific figure based off of what I had seen of their personalities at that point. All that effort it was not to lecture, it actually wasn't to preach, and it wasn't even to indict or condemn these women for what they did not know. And trust me, they didn't know. That night was an invitation. That night was a benevolent invitation to see yourself within my community, for us to connect deeper as new friends, you know. And I was really excited to share something that I get very proud and excited about, which is the amazingness and the celebration of Blackness in America, specifically in New York City. And that night, you know, they might have said what they said. I was actually kind of surprised when the episodes aired and I saw, you know, all of this angst and anxiety the next day and stuff. Sonia Morgan also texted me the same night. Sonia intentionally opted not to drink that night. She had on her glasses. And if you know Sonia Morgan, when she puts on those glasses, she means serious business, with her bouffant. And Sonia said she had the best time ever, So, and I actually know Sonia's to be authentic. I don't know about the other, but I know that to be true of Sonia, because even after we wrapped, even after the show collapsed, even after all that bullshit, Sonia would still text me saying that she had just realized that down the street from her infamous townhouse, Josephine Baker owned one of the neighboring brownstones. And she sent me the link, so she was bought in to these opportunities, again, to connect femininity, feminine power, Black women, white women, all the things. And I will tell you, all three of them, I never went to Leah's place after we filmed, but Sonia, Lou, and Ramona's places all had the Harlem Candle Company candles that I gifted them with on display and lit. So at least they love the candles.
There you go. Well, and I know you've talked about Sonia, and there's a relationship
Yes.
that there's that authenticity. And I mean,
And it's still in place. I was just texting with Sonia 3 days ago. She was going to try to make my book event here in New York, but she's still in Virginia with her family. But Sonia and I are like legitimately, I would have never met her but for RHONY, and I'm so glad that I did.
yeah, shout out to Sonia.
Yes.
Well, and I will say, I love that moment where she says, we need to listen to Eboni, that it's about just listening, just
That's
holding
it.
that space for Eboni, like hold the space for the person who is offering their history that you're not aware of.
And just got here and is
Yeah.
20 something years younger than us. And it's not her fault that we couldn't, that the network and casting didn't, cast an existing member. I mean, they had such limited Black women to choose from their authentic friend groups. There were a couple here or there. They didn't make the cut for whatever reason. So they cast a newbie. They cast someone outside of our world. Let's give it a shot. To me, the fact that there hasn't been RHONY on air for almost 2.5 years now, it's a collective failure. It's a collective failure. It could have gone a very different way. I think that that playing hardball shit, that we won't film with her, or it's her. I think that bullshit never works when you're dealing with an entity as big as NBC Universal. I don't care who it was. It could have been me. It could have been Boo Boo the Fool. They're just not going to respond to that. And I think, unfortunately, that's what you're seeing with the legacy iteration. I almost wish that these ladies would have just given an opportunity to really get to know. I really could have been great counsel to them, because they are just navigating and negotiating and overplaying their hand in a way that's not giving them what they want. And that part's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and before I sat down with you, I actually watched the final episode again. And there's a lot of peace. There's like, you're playing a doppelganger game. You all
So
are
fun.
making fun of each other and then learning. And then
We're
there's
kissing
actually,
Harry
yeah,
Dubin. We're
yeah.
having a good time.
You
And
have
it
pasties.
yeah, we ended in a great place. I mean, I think that's, the saddest part
Yeah.
is that if you watch the last episodes 2 to 3, it's like shit. Here's the tragedy: is it took all of season 13. So what are you talking about? 15 episodes, and basically in real time, and we were real filming. It took 4 months for us to all collectively get past the bullshit, and for them to realize I'm not the one. I'm not going to be your fucking sidekick. I'm not
Yep.
going to sit here and play small. I'm not going to center you because you're an OG, bitch. I don't give a fuck. Okay. And once we finally got past all of that, and they're like, all right, there's enough commonality here. There's enough funness here. And that goes for me too. I didn't know them either. I had some guardedness. And by the time we got past all that and we got to let our hair down and let our titties out and have a good time, it was all love. And then the episode started airing. And then I did what I do as a professional communicator and journalist. And that's I gave feedback and interviews about how I felt during those previously recorded episodes. And my castmates, Ramona and Luann in particular, felt very threatened, very undermined, because they felt I was challenging them and their views on race and culture in public. And I was. And that's that's my life's work. And the network knew it. And if you guys had simply Googled, you would have known it too. So I think, again, we got to this great place. It took us a really long time to get there. I actually think, Andrew, if we had just kept filming like a lot of shows do, and we had already been, a month or two into filming by the time the episodes aired, I think that maybe that could have made a difference. But also, we don't look back in this industry. Everything happened for some reason, and it's all moving forward for me.
Yeah. Well, and also there is like a interesting extra episode. I'm not sure, no one really talks about it that much, but there's like the extra footage that usually never happens now in the current iteration of Housewives, and I'm assuming that's because there was no reunion
Yeah.
or yeah. So they were like, here's our extra bonus. But I also feel like the reunion, and like you're saying, Ebony, if you were filming the next season during the reunion, that would have been it would have been received differently when you were giving press appearances. But not to say anything, Ebony, but what you're saying about your experience, the series is already premiering to the broad global public. So,
Right.
you know, how is you going on talking about your experience any different than how everyone's responding?
I think they just weren't used to it. I think it was, I don't think Tinsley did it. I don't think Leah did it. I think, and this is the race aside, right? This is a dynamic where you've got OGs, who have a serious kind of possessiveness around this show being their show and their platform, and the sporadic newbies, from and really it's just Tinsley and Leah, and then like the one season people like Jules and stuff, right? We are supposed to come in, don't touch anything, know your place, be a sidekick. By the way, I don't think the sidekick regulation was because I was Black. I think that's what they do with all new housewives. Let's be very clear. Because I'm a Black woman in America, I'm never gonna let nobody, not even another Black woman, turn me into a sidekick. So I think, again, you talk about nuance, and my castmates just didn't have the capacity to understand the various elements at play, from race to age to class to education level, and to kind of, what's the word? I want to say almost kind of pedigree in television. So I might be new to reality TV, and so thus you think that you can haze me or regulate me to this subsidiary sidekick role. Bitch, I've been doing national television for over 10 years. Get out of my face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
that's something they were not at all prepared for.
yeah. And I feel like if you were on a cast where there was Professor or others in the media space, like who are in your,
Or even
like you're
doctors.
saying,
Like I was texting
yeah,
with Tiffany Moon yesterday. Like that's why, listen, not for nothing. I'll probably have this conversation with Andy at some point. Where is just even a girl show? Because honestly, now in my life, filming a full-time Real Housewife, that maybe doesn't work for my schedule. But let's do a week or two. Myself, Tiff Moon, Crystal Kong Minkoff, Claudia Jordan, get
yep,
some OG energies from back in the day, and let's just go have some fucking fun and look pretty and get wasted and break the fourth wall and talk about all the ridiculousness from our various seasons and episodes. I think that would be compelling, entertaining television, and would also move the genre forward. I think generally speaking, people are tired of what feels like self-produced, overproduced antics across the franchises. So I think this would give it some fresh energy.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you talking all about this. Also, I'm not going to have Ebony reflect on this now because she's done it on Holding Court. So go to Holding Court to see her response to Ramona and
Yes.
Ramona's Carlos King appearance, all during
Yes.
BravoCon, which I don't
Yep.
think is a coincidence uh, that
Mm-hmm.
she went during BravoCon to Carlos. But, you know, um, you have such a really powerful response to Ramona. So I don't want you to have to bring it up here, but thank you, Ebony, to talk about that experience with RHONY because I love what you're saying about this girls' trip. I hope that happens. Let's manifest that. And I really do want to, before we play a game that I told Ebony about, um, you know, for all of those who, haven't yet got their hands or their ears tuned into Bet on Black, there is this moment that you really reflect on an absence, if there's an absence of Blackness. And I think this speaks
Yeah,
directly to a lot of your Fox News, when you were
sure.
in Fox News, when you were in RHONY, a lot of your career. And it doesn't even have to be that there's an absence of Black people, but this reluctance to talk openly about Blackness. What would you say to everyone out there about that power of needing to center Blackness in especially these media spaces that you've occupied?
Yeah. My lived experience tells me, Andrew, that Blackness is the single most misunderstood experience in America. And we could write a million books about why that's the case. But that's the case. So therefore, how wonderful. Again, I was at a event recently and someone said, "Oh, we've got to have these difficult conversations." I said, "I think we got to reframe that." And that's actually why I wrote Bet on Black and subtitled it The Good News About Being Black in America Today. Today we get to have these dialogues and back and forth, and you don't have to agree with everything I say, Andrew. I don't have to agree with everything you think, but we can engage in a way that is an enormous, wonderful, blessed opportunity, not a woe is me, drag us to the table to have this god awful conversation about queerness, this awful conversation about anti-Semitism. That was the whole point of Black Shabbat, is to not carry the sad heaviness of the isms, but flip the paradigm on its head. Let's reframe it. And let's say, how wonderful is it that we can say, that's what me and my Jewish girlfriends do all the time, and it's not, the group chat was lit when You People came out, Trust and Believe, like, and we go back and forth and we challenge each other and well, what about this line? And what about that? And then we say at the end, my God, how lucky are we? How blessed are we that we at right here in our own proximity, we get to break bread, have a glass of wine, share some laughs, maybe some tears, maybe some contentious moments sometime where I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing or you're holding enough space, but I trust your intention for me and my people. And that's the beauty of this America today.
Yes, yes. And then you've taught me and anyone who gets Bet on Black this power of openness. And
Mm.
that's what it was for me, is um to be open to uncomfortability, but to listen.
Yeah.
And that's what Black Shabbat was, the lesson that you were teaching. Also, I have to know, how is she doing, your friend from Black
Oh,
Shabbat?
Archie?
Archie. Yeah, how's Archie?
Archie's great. Archie's great. Archie just moved into like a sick, I'm not gonna say the price, but it's a sick townhouse that she and her husband renovated in the West Village, and it's fabulous. And so now we're gonna, no more New Jersey Shabbats. Now Shabbat will be downtown Manhattan.
Even though I love Morris County, shout out to Summit.
Oh no, shout out to
No,
Summit, gave me some times, baby. So it
I
was
went to
great.
Kane University for undergrad. Now I'm at
Oh,
Stony Brook.
got you. No,
So
it's
I know,
gorgeous. Yeah,
or beautiful.
yeah.
But for them to laugh about how far it is, I'm like, it's like a 40-minute train ride. But
Well, Andrew, they were bitching about coming to 121st Street and they mostly live on 68. So please.
I can't.
I
Forget
I
about,
will I will not. I
but
will
if you go to
not.
the Hamptons are fine. Okay.
Anyway.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I now am going to, do you have like a few more minutes, Ebony?
Yeah, we'll do a game for a few and then we'll wrap. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so for everyone out there, we are now heading over to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room Cafe, our Patreon, which I know Ebony likes, an entrepreneurial
I love a
spirit.
bag. We love a
Yes,
bag. We
yes,
love an extra bag. Yep.
yes. So we are going to play Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams, because she's about to be a TV personality judge. Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so this game is called Guilty or Not Guilty. Again, this is not your official judicial opinion, but
Right.
this
Yeah.
is, nothing about with beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't have to do that. But it's not being held in the court of law. I just want you to reflect on the pop culture moments that some might consider the messiest within the
Okay.
last year. And I want you to think about, is this guilty or not guilty of being a messy moment, in
Okay.
Judge Ebony K. Williams' opinion? Okay.
Okay.
Kim Kardashian wearing the Marilyn Monroe dress. Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. Not guilty. I was fine with that. I was fine
Okay.
with that. I think, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I was fine with that because as much as Andrew, you and I are like these history buffs and these like big old nerds, these kids today don't know shit, you know? So I do think it's kind of nice when modern cultural icons can bring that to life. Like if I could, I probably couldn't fit into it, but if I could fit into like a Dorothy Dandridge dress or something, I would absolutely wear that to the Emmys.
Yeah, yeah. Or Diane Carroll. I want to mention
Diane
that.
Carroll,
I love
honey.
Diane Carroll.
I live for Diane Carroll. Well, Diane
When you
Carroll was my
mentioned her,
inspiration. Yes,
I
I was
was
gonna
so
say she was my
excited.
inspiration for how I would show up on RHONY. You know, Diane Carroll says I was the first Black bitch on television because she was the first Black woman, of course, in the hit 1980s television series Dynasty. So, she is me and I am her. There we go.
Yep. Okay. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial.
Messy, extremely messy and unnecessary.
Yeah. Guilty. Okay.
Very guilty. Yeah, they could have
Very
kept that.
guilty. The
Yes.
Amy Robach and TJ Holmes affair.
Guilty as sin, hell, give them death. No, just kidding. But
Ah,
no, extremely messy. And again, very unnecessary. I talk about that on Holding Court.
yep. Uh, Brandy Glanville versus Caroline Manzo. Hmm.
I'm going to say guilty, but I have to say, I need to read some more facts there. But from what I'm hearing and what I have read, it's actually very disturbing. So I no bueno on that. I don't like what I'm reading and hearing about that at all. Don't touch me.
Mm-mm. Tom Girardi getting indicted recently.
I'm going to say not guilty because that's what should happen. At this
Mm.
point, the facts are playing out. The process is following the facts, and I'm for that. So not guilty.
Yep. Okay, the last one. The RHONY Legacy show being held in purgatory.
I mean, I'm going to say not guilty because you got to play your hand, and let the chips fall where they may. All I know is I'm betting on Black.
Yes. I say first episode, a Bet on Black book appearance.
There we go. There
There
we
we
go.
go. That'll be.
There we go. Hey, ladies. Hey,
Yeah,
bitches. Could you
I do. I
imagine?
think, well, Ebony, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad that I got to sit down with you. I feel that there's so much that you're teaching all of us. I want to thank you for, Gloria is right, your mom. You are becoming the power entrepreneurial Oprah spirit. It's happening. Um, so thank you for your time. Please, everyone, get Bet on Black, the good
Yeah.
news about being Black in America today, and listen to Holding Court. Watch the show. Can you tease
Oh, the
when the
Judge
show's
Show
coming
coming
out?
coming to a syndicated platform near you this fall. So we'll
Oh,
we'll circle
soon.
back to
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Thank you, Andrew. I want to say thank you as well. I also learn as much as I teach in this world and in these conversations. So you have been a light. And again, but for RHONY, wouldn't know each other. So, I have such gratitude for the platform. I really, really do.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, so many who've learned about you from RHONY have followed you now in your career. So,
It's a
you
win.
know, yep. And
It's
those
a win.
shows keep playing. So keep playing those
Absolutely.
shows so everyone can learn about Ebony K. Williams.
Thanks, Hulu.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ebony. Oh, can we do a quick photo real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Here, wait, I'll stop.